Hi, this is Bill Collier with the Tioga Freedomist, and I'm here with Luke Forgeng. We are talking about an incident that occurred starting right here. And I'll preface all of this with, according to Luke, the police haven't verified to him whether or not the person that he confronted out here, which is down the road a little bit, was the actual person who they now suspect of the murder that was right in this area. We'll be having a picture of the house that will accompany this, so you'll see where it happened. But we believe that the story is really about what a good neighbor does to help their neighbors. Because as far as he knew at this moment in time, when you see this suspicious activity, as far as he knew, he was looking at somebody who could have been a murderer, who could have been somebody who just killed one of his neighbors. And he made a decision that he was more worried about his safety of his neighbors and his neighborhood, even if he had to confront that person. So this is where you began to see her? Or?
Yep. Yeah, what I was doing, I was driving down the road to take my trailer to drop off at a friend's house where I was helping them out. Upon doing that, I was driving this way. Her vehicle was stopped here, and she was basically looking out into this field, so I thought, with military-type binoculars. I knew the folks that were staying here for the weekend, and it just seemed, at this place here, it seemed very fishy to me, because it didn't strike me like it was the type of person that would be looking at deer, and just, it fit the description of the suspect and also the vehicle. And so what I did was I kind of took notice of it, didn't really think too much about it, drove down and stopped at my friend's house, which is down the road here a quarter mile. And you know, as it started clicking, after I dropped my trailer off, decided to come back up the road and find out a little bit more in detail.
And was she still right around here when you saw her?
When I drove back, this was about 10 minutes later, she happened to be down the road another 300-400 yards.
So you see her 300, was she still with the binoculars?
At the next spot? Yes. Yeah.
So she had her binoculars out, and then you decided to confront her.
Yeah.
You know, to find out what was going on. And
Yeah.
what did you do to prepare yourself? Because you didn't have any weapons on you.
Yeah, and maybe it might be good to say beforehand, we didn't know if there was other suspects. And so part of my concern was, what if she's the getaway car? There's folks at this house staying there, and maybe she's watching. You know, for all I knew, that there could have been people sneaking up from the woods, and I just didn't know. I was concerned that for my own safety, but also, we're very close with the folks that were staying there. So when it came time to coming back to confront her, I have pistols, but I did not have one on me at the time. I was in my truck. She was in a lower vehicle, so I thought to myself, kind of like MacGyver would, I thought, well, might as well pick up a couple rocks out my friend's driveway, just, driveway stones. Pick them up. What went through my mind was, if she pulls a gun on me, I'll throw the rocks at her face and hit the gas. So I kept it in second gear. That's just kind of my thought. Right as before I went to leave, my friend and his wife stopped, and I mentioned that, hey, I saw what looked like the suspect. He said, why don't you call the police? Part of it was, it takes the police 20 minutes to get here. And so I figured, I didn't want to call the police if it wasn't even the suspect. So I figured, why not just go talk to her and kind of get an idea.
So you pick up 3 stones. Were you thinking like David, Goliath?
I don't know. It kind of sounds that way, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. I just was thinking more so for my own safety, if I threw a couple rocks, if she pulled a gun on me,
give you time.
it'd give me enough time to hit the gas and go.
So what did you tell her? Just ask her, what are you doing here? Or?
Yeah, I just stopped up and I said, I was just curious. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm looking at deer, and there was no deer in the field. And I said, well, did you see anything? Oh yeah, I saw a deer. I said, did you see any buck? Yeah, it had an antler. And in the midst of talking to her, it was awkward. She ended up looking the opposite direction into the woods, like just turning, and like she felt awkward. And I just confronted her. I said, you know, you really ought to be careful. You fit the description of the suspect. You're driving a vehicle that fits the description. I said, you go to the wrong house, you're going to get shot. And that's kind of what I told her. But I kind of talked to her enough to get a visual on her face, to take notice of her car, and also upon leaving, I tried to look at the license plate in my rear. You know, I basically stopped at this driveway, and we called 911. The other thing was my friend that I mentioned, he was in a car behind me, and what I did, I told him, I said, I'm going to stop, talk to this lady. I want you to wait a minute or so, come up behind me, so if something does happen, you know, just for my safety,
right.
You know, it might seem a little, she might not be as likely to do something in that case. Also, at the same time, I didn't know, like I said, if she's down the road, and say these people, you know, she had accomplices that might do something, whether they could be coming back in the woods. I didn't know if somebody had a gun on my head with a scope. I didn't know.
Death. You never know. That you didn't go into the situation. Why were you willing to go into that situation?
Yeah, part of it is, you know what, I don't have much to lose. I mean, I wouldn't want to leave my wife and my kids, but the reality is, I've got some things with my own life where I face death a lot, you know, with some things with my brain that's gone on for 6 years. And so, even at a young age, I'm faced with what happens if I pass away. At the same time, I put my trust in Christ, and I feel like, you know what, I'm gonna try and do what I feel like I should do, you know, to care for my neighbors. You know, we should love our neighbors. And so, in doing that, I wanted to, you know, we're told, lay down your lives for your friends or your neighbors. And so, I don't know, it's just, I didn't think too much about it. I did run home after calling 911, got a gun and pistol and raced back to see if she was still there. But, I don't know, I just didn't click.
And you didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
In the car.
I had never seen her
when you
before.
saw her. But you've seen, you know, the suspect is, and they still haven't officially said she's a suspect, although in a search warrant, they named her as a suspect in a search warrant. They said that, you know, they used the phrase suspect. But she's still not officially, because they haven't officially charged her. However, have you seen her picture?
Whose picture?
The picture of the woman that they have in custody.
I saw it just a couple days ago, yes.
And could it have, I mean, you might not be a little vague on who it was, but I mean, could it have been a similar?
Yeah, I think it could have been. You know, it's kind of vague, because when I saw that woman, she looked like she had almost contacts in her eyes. You know, colored eyes, you know, she had these bluish, grayish eyes that just looked odd. Also, almost looked like dyed hair. Now, yeah, I could be paranoid and skeptical of. I don't know.
A witness is a witness. What you saw is what you saw. And
Yeah.
we're going to let the authorities sort all that out.
Yeah.
But the car looked, you said, like the vehicle that was the suspected vehicle.
Yeah.
Although in hindsight we know that it probably wasn't the exact vehicle. But what tipped you off is it kind of looked like that same. And I remember, you know, when the initial thing came out, it was a little vague as what kind of vehicle it was. It's not like you knew exactly what kind of car.
All we knew was that it was a green vehicle with a spoiler on the back. My friend tried to take notice. I think he said that the front grille was kind of damaged. And that's why I said...
So this actually had a spoiler in the back, too?
It did have a spoiler, yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a interesting piece of information, because that's kind of a difficult coincidence. You know, officially, we're told that the vehicle was down at Campbell's.
Okay.
During that time, but is it possible that the vehicle wasn't at Campbell's, that she actually was driving the vehicle? We don't know. Yeah. You know, this is pure speculation, but the fact that you're talking about a vehicle that looked like it. But regardless of how that sorts itself out, and the authorities haven't notified Luke as to whether or not he saw the actual suspect, not long after Luke saw what he saw, we actually had the arrest of Deborah Lockett, who lives. It would be really interesting if this turned out not to be the woman, but because you thought she was the woman, and then they started looking on the road, then they ended up leading them to the actual person. Either way, it was a very brave thing, and it was absolutely the right thing, which is what we're all supposed to do. This is a terrible story. We have, just up the road here, a family torn apart, married for decades. I don't know if you can imagine, what that's like, to have somebody come in your home, take your husband, stab you, leave you. That's terrible. But within that, we have the story. Walt Disney, he said that every time you see tragedy on TV, look for the helpers. And there's always a helper that will step up in a situation to show that not all humanity is like what the horrible thing happened. So we're very happy that you were there, and we hope that other people take that same attitude and that same message. And certainly your faith in Christ and the fact that you believe that you knew that if something happened to you where you was going to go certainly had an impact in your confidence at that time. So with that being said, I want to I don't know if I'd say congratulations, but thank you, Luke, for being who you are and looking out for your neighbors, who I'm sure very much appreciate you. We will continue to follow this story and get all the information that we can as far as who did what and why they did it and whatnot. But we ask you to continue to pray for the family who are affected by this, the Litzelman family, and everybody out here on this road that for such a long time. I mean, you folks, even after we said she was a suspect, because we got that off the record kind of stuff going on, it really wasn't certain. I mean, there was no way anybody would know, even if she was the suspect, that maybe there was somebody else involved. So a lot of folks around here are just, we're worried. Do I have to keep my eyes and ears out on something else happening? We drove out here, and believe me, there's not a lot out here. Not a lot of people, there's a lot of winding roads, a lot of dark places. So, this has been Bill Collier with the Tioga Freedomist. I appreciate you watching, and thank you so much, Luke, for being a man.